Welcome to Skip the Queue, a podcast for people working in and working with visitor attractions. I'm your host, Paul Marden. Long-time listeners will remember my guest today, Paul Griffiths, when he was CEO at Painshill Park, from when he was interviewed back in Season 1 by Kelly. In today's episode, Paul comes back to talk about his new role as CEO of Jazeera Hamra Heritage Village in Ras Al Khaimah in the UAE. Now, I'm always interested in the first 90 days of people's experience in a job, so we'll be talking more about that and his plans for the future. Paul, welcome back to Skip the Queue.
Well, thanks for having me, Paul. It's great to be here.
Long-time listeners will know that we always start with an icebreaker question, and our guests don't get to know that one in advance. I think this one's a pretty kind one. I was pretty mean to Paul Satwell from Hamra Cultural Trust a couple of weeks ago because I asked him whether it was Pompey or Saints, and for political reasons he felt that he had to abstain from that.
Did he? Interesting. That's interesting. I'd have gone Pompey at the time because that's where we live. Well, did live.
Oh, there you go. Over from Portsmouth, and you're now in the UAE. Tell listeners, what is that one home comfort that after 3 months away from Blighty you're missing? Is it Marmite? Is it proper English marmalade?
Do you know what? I've been able to get hold of most things, but I've not been able to get. I know people who cook properly, so I should be able to do this myself. But I haven't. Cauliflower cheese is one thing I'm missing from home. It doesn't sell it anywhere in a sort of pre-pack or frozen form. I can even get hold of Yorkshire puddings in Spinney's supermarket, but I can't get hold of cauliflower cheese. But
can you get cauliflowers?
I can get cauliflowers. I'm sure I can make cheese sauce if I knew what I was doing. But I'm so used to normally buying a pack of cheese, cauliflower cheese to have in my Sunday roast.
Okay, so if I ever get to come out, I need to bring out a plastic wrapped, properly sealed so that it doesn't leak on the plate.
Yes.
The cauliflower cheese.
Yes, please. Yeah, absolutely.
So your last episode was actually, or your last full episode was back in Season 1, Episode 22. So 5 years ago, and the world has changed a lot in 5 years, but most recently it's changed a lot for you, hasn't it? So why don't you tell listeners a little bit about what's happened to you since you were with us in Season 1? Wow,
yeah. Well, Season 1 seems an age away, doesn't it? Now, with all the wonderful guests you've had since on Skip the Queue, it's been a different program completely. But yeah, no. Well, back then I was at Painshill. We were coming out of the pandemic, and I remember, Kelly and I were chatting over all the different avenues that everyone had gone and what we'd done at Painshill, and that continued brilliantly. And however, my life has taken a change in sense of where I am, but still doing the same sort of work. So, which is, when you're in our industry, and it is such a fabulous industry, it's great to stay in it. So, I am now over in the United Arab Emirates, in the Emirate of Ras Al Khaimah, which is the third biggest of the 7 Emirates that make up the UAE. Behind Abu Dhabi and, of course, Dubai. So I was approached, nearly almost this time last year about a role over here. Yes, my recruitment company got in touch and went through, had a good look at the job description and thought, well, actually, we'll throw my hat into the ring and applied. Went through a series of online interviews with the recruitment company, then an online interview with the people over here in various departments from the Qasimi Foundation and the Department of Museums and Antiquities. So, yeah, looking at this brand new job, which I'm now lucky enough to be in, I then was flown out in August for a round of interviews, met all the team. One of those things that you later discover the whole real 4 days was one big interview, although there was a central one. But, of course, everyone you were meeting along the way was being asked to feedback on, and I love chatting to people and enjoying people's company. So, actually, I'm sure I've been okay on that because, we went for dinners and lunches and all sorts, which was just a lovely 4 days and almost felt like a free hit in many ways. It was like, this is going to be a brilliant experience. If I don't get the job, I'm going to have a great 4 days in Ras Al Khaimah, seeing it, meeting everyone, enjoying the time here. And, the more time I spent here, the more time with the team, the more time, going and visiting sites, became more and more that this would be an amazing job. Obviously gave my absolute everything, did loads of research, gave everything in the interview. The interview took a rather unusual turn. After the sort of hour and a half of questions and my questions, I was asked to leave the room for a short period. Not unusual in that sense, because I was, I wasn't just going to leave and go because obviously I was in their hands for 4 days. But Dr. Natasha Ridge, the executive director of the foundation, came out of the interview and said, right, that's all gone really well. We're really pleased. We're now off to the palace for you to meet His Highness Sheikh Saud, who is the ruler of Ras Al Khaimah and on the Marine Council of the UAE. So I was went to one of the small meeting rooms. Now I know that. Now I know where I went. But at that point, I had no idea. One of the lovely. There's a very much a service thing here. So we have in the Heritage Village, where later we have a wonderful member of our team, Geraldine, who does lots of cooking, prepares stuff, and just had a wonderful fish taco lunch because we're 4 hours ahead of you, of course. Here in UAE. So one of the guys came in, gave me an English breakfast tea, and I sort of sat there reviewing thinking what on earth was I going to be asked by His Highness, and then was put into one of the drivers, and we drove up through Ras Al Khaimah city, through into the palace, up the long driveway, and there I was sort of eventually after about 20 minutes presented to Sheikh Saud, who asked me, chatted, asked various questions. I don't think there could be many interviews that you end up with His Highness in the second half of it. It's sometimes a presentation. So I was there for about half an hour. Eventually, he then sort of gave the obvious, which I now know what he does. He sort of stands up, and that's your time over, and off he goes. And off I went back to then go and have dinner with some of the team. So it was a very surreal afternoon.
Being interviewed by royalty, but when you're not expecting that as part of the interview process, that must be quite unnerving.
I had a heads up that at some point in my trip I might meet him, but there was no formal arrangements. I hadn't been able to get it in a diary, so it hadn't even crossed my mind that that's what was about to happen when I was asked to leave the meeting room. I just maybe they wanted to come back with more questions, or say it hadn't gone well, whatever. But that was I took that as a good sign. I thought, well, actually, if I'm being whisked up there, the interview must have gone relatively well, because I'm sure they would present me to the Sheikh Saud if it hadn't gone so well.
Yeah, you'd hope that he would be towards the end of the cycle of the interview round, wouldn't he? Not doing the early sifting of CVs.
No, he certainly had seen who I was, because he asked me some questions about where I'd worked and things like that. So he'd obviously seen a CV. He's a very... I've met him subsequently a few times. I've been fortunate to be at dinner hosted by him a couple of weeks ago. But he is a very, very, very intelligent man. Works really hard. For him, he spends every minute working on the Emirate. He's the ruler, but he's almost it's a sort of combo, I guess. I'm trying to word this in a work away, but he's a prime minister at the same time as being the ruler. So he is constantly working, and really committed. And I'm lucky in many ways that where I am working at the Heritage Village is one of his real pet projects that he's really driving forward. So yes, we come with sort of royal approval, if you like. So yeah,
excellent. So I've not been to the Emirates before. So for those of us that have not been, tell us a little bit about Ras Al Khaimah.
Of course. Well, Ras Al Khaimah is one of the quieter Emirates. Mentioned Sheikh Saud there. He's really driving a sort of agenda of bringing in more tourists, but he wants to use culture and heritage as part of that. So it's a more relaxed, low level, if that makes sense. So it's not Dubai. It's not full on. It's a more relaxed Emirate. It's relaxed in cultural and many of the ways it's not as some of the other Emirates are. For example, completely dry. Ras Al Khaimah has given licenses to hotels and big restaurants in hotels for serving drinks, and there are a number of cellars where you can purchase for your consumption in your own home, whereas Sharjah you can't purchase any alcohol, for example. So it's a bit more chilled like that. It's a lovely place. We're very fortunate to have the heavier mountains go through the far side of Ras Al Khaimah. So where I'm based is more on the seafront, but then not. I can see the mountains behind, and there's a number of drives up into the mountains which are absolutely fabulous. Up to the Jebel Jais, which is the highest point in the UAE. We have the world's longest and fastest zip wire. I have not gone anywhere near that yet. Goes up to 100 kilometres an hour and is the longest from the top of the mountain, whisking you off to the other side. I think it looks terrifying. But
I'm more interested in cables that take you to the top of the mountain.
Yes.
Maybe with some skis on my feet, than I am attaching myself to a cable and going down the mountain. Yeah. That doesn't sound like fun to me.
Yeah, there's a toboggan ride as well up there as well. And
I'd love that.
So that's the toboggan ride's on my to-do list when the family get home. I'll save it for then. I'll take my son Barney on that. But there's all this sort of adventure sports up on the top of the mountain, and driving up there is remarkable. They put a proper road in. It's not the scary driving up the Alps, terrified what's going to come around the other corner. It's very like driving up a road, normal sort of dual carriageway, 2 lanes each way, and then going through the mountains to the other side to one of the other Emirates, Fujairah, for example. So you're over on the Indian Ocean side, Gulf of Oman. That road's just beautiful. There's no traffic on it, So Ras Al Khaimah is only about an hour to an hour and a half from Dubai Airport.
Right.
So, and Dubai is a sort of, people go to Dubai in the same way that you'd go to London, I'd go to London when I was in Portsmouth. It's an hour, it's not considered there's always someone from work who's in Dubai every day almost for some reason. So nipping up to Dubai, I was lucky. I went to a dinner there last week, and it just seemed very normal that jumped in a car and drove up to Dubai and came back that evening. Whereas it seems remarkable actually to be doing that. But yeah, so close to where we are. Abu Dhabi's about 2.5 hours away. So and we are the northern point of the Emirates. So we border on to Oman's split into a number of areas. Again, I didn't know any of this till I got here, but there's a part of Oman that's at the top of Ras Al Khaimah. So yeah, so it's a beautiful emirate with nature, with mountain areas, which does get a bit chillier when you go up the mountains. I looked quite silly in my t-shirt and shorts when I went up there on a Sunday afternoon. People were going past me like they were going skiing. You know, people wearing coats and hats and looking at me as if I was really daft. But I was still. It's interesting that because it's winter, obviously everywhere here at the moment and at home, but it's people here are often telling me it's a cold day when I'm sort of standing thinking, no, actually I still feel really quite warm. But yeah. Finding that
we're talking 30s at the moment for you, aren't we?
Yeah, it's a little bit. The last couple of days have been down in the lower 20s, really comfortable. But when we last weekend, people were getting a bit nervous that summer had come very, very early because it was hitting the early 30s last week. So I don't know how. For me, when we get to August, when it's in the mid to late 40s with real high humidity, I think I'm just going to go from aircon building to aircon building to aircon building.
I am such a Goldilocks when it comes to that sort of thing. Not too hot, not too cold.
Yes,
to be just right. So I would definitely struggle in that kind of heat. Look, let's talk a little bit about where you are in the new job. So you've taken on the role of CEO of Al Jazeera Hamra Heritage Village. So tell me a little bit about the village. Why is this village so historic?
Well, it's a really interesting one there, Paul, because it is very important. But it's not that old, and that's why what coming to me about making it more alive is something that's going to be crucial to us. So the village has been lived in for many years. It was a pearl farming village, so most of the people who worked here were doing pearl farming, which is pretty horrible job to do. You were again learning about this. You were jumping off boats, going to the ocean depths for up to 3 to 4 minutes, no protection really, apart from a very light shirt and some little bits on your fingers. But actually you're nothing on your eyes, so you're having to look in the salt water, find the pearls, come up, and they were going up and down sometimes 15, 16 times or more a day. And there's a fascinating exhibition in Dubai at the Shindigar Museum, which really does focus on how this worked and how these guys were living. So it's a real. So that was the village. So the village had that. It obviously had fishing men, merchants making boats, and merchants selling trading wares. And Ras Al Khaimah has been quite a strategic part, as all of the UAE really, for the sort of trades coming from the Middle East and out into the Gulf. So the village was being lived in up until the very early 70s. Up in the 1970s, the Al-Zabi tribe, who were based here, were offered, I guess, a new life is the only way to look at it, in Abu Dhabi, with new jobs, with land, with housing, and just a better way of life. Pearl farming, it was now being done so much cheaper and easier in the Orient, in Japan mainly, so that dropped away. There was the other merchant trading going on. So actually, the oil boom basically led the tribe to almost up sticks and head to Abu Dhabi. And in many ways, it's a good story because we're still in touch with quite considerable amounts of the tribes people who were here. Lots of the elders have done wonderful oral histories and videos talking about their lives here. But this village survived and fell into ruins, but actually wasn't developed. And where it becomes important is this would have been what all of the Gulf would have looked like before the oil boom. The UAE wasn't a wealthy nation before then. When I went up to Dubai and spent some time at the Etihad Museum, which is based around, which Etihad meaning Union, is the not around Man City Stadium, I should point out. It's very much around about how the UAE had come together and how So it wasn't the wealthiest nation, but actually they discovered oil. They then brought 7 Emirates together. It then has flourished in the ways that we now know what. Abu Dhabi and everywhere looks like, and even Ras Al Khaimah in some parts, really quite glamorous. But this village survived. So although it fell into ruin, all the other pearl farming villages across the Gulf had just got destroyed, knocked down, turned into hotels and high rises. And actually, when you visit the other Emirates, lots of them are now recreating their historic areas or repurposing some of the historic buildings, and they're doing it very well in Dubai. And so Sharjah has actually completely rebuilt what it calls the heart of Sharjah, which was its historic sort of areas. But this survived. Many of the buildings had fallen into disrepair, and what we've been doing for the last few years as the Qasimi Foundation and the Department of Antiquities and Museums is restoring a number of these buildings. We've then sort of got into a sort of activation. So you can walk around. So we've got pathing now. Only a year ago, it was mostly sand. We've now got a path going through it, so you can walk. And the job that I've really been asked to do initially on arrival here is to really push that activation forward and really look at my sort of what I've done in the past and what we've seen other places do, and think about what can we do to bring this a bit more to life. Because it's the sort of story of the village is around the 1970s. Well, it was abandoned in the 1970s. Well, for us from the UK, from lots of other nationalities, actually something in the 70s isn't very old.
No,
it's in our lifespans. We are looking at this going, well, actually. So when I was talking to a lot of RAC TDAs, basically visit RAC Tourism Development Authority, so they are really supportive in wanting to push our Jazeera Hamra Heritage Village, which will from now on abbreviate to ASHA to save me keep saying that longhand. So actually, so they are really keen that we're doing more stuff. So why would a tourist want to come? What is there to see once you're here? On top of some abandoned and now beautifully restored houses, mosques, things that we would have expected in a village of, 1,000 or so population, 500 houses, so more than 1,000 people really. So that's the sort of plan in that way. So in many ways, I've got a sort of blank canvas to play with, but money's not unlimited. So it's about sort of working closely with local communities, working with, local traders, looking at what can we bring into the village on the back of the art fair that I know we'll talk about later. But it's, this is a real challenge for me to how do I take this sort of place forward. So it's a real sort of,
in my mind's eye, I've got, we go to the Weald Downland Museum, so open air museum, lots of houses recreating life through the ages. Is that the sort of experience that I'm going to get if I come to the village? I'm going to see the properties and I'm going to see this previous way of life come to life in front of me.
Well, at the moment you're just seeing the houses and the buildings. But you're walking around looking at historic buildings, but we have got a number of the houses we've put in. Each video is at the moment showing the audio visual, so you can walk around and listen to members of the tribes chatting about their youth and what's happening, and you can see the buildings in real life. I guess what I'm looking for initially is telling the story a little bit of the village, which we don't initially do that well at the moment. That's no criticism. Yes, this is what we need to do going forward. There's been several stages of activation. When I came last August, not many paths weren't all finished. We didn't have anywhere for visitor services to be at the front. And we only had a very small sort of officey area, which has now been built up to where I'm sat today. So I think what you're going to get is a blend of traders who will be in our souk area. So the souk area is fully restored, so former souk as in shopping market area. So that's my first point, is to move some people in there. So we've got a goldsmith and moved our studio in. Got some handicrafts. We've got some textile people moving in. The main gallery of Ras Al Khaimah Design Gallery, which is the one big gallery where artists can go, is going to have a sort of satellite shop, if you like, not shop, a satellite. So there will be pieces of work of their art in here with their little souvenir store, which they sell because they get people. A lot of what the design gallery does is making souvenirs of Ras Al Khaimah that are all handmade, so quite special gifts.
Yeah.
So what we're hoping is tying up with our local hoteliers, who many of which have not been, so it's bringing them in, and they need something more to see to send their guests here. So, talking to some of them over lunch when I hosted some of them on Saturday, it was a case of actually, can they send their clients and say, you can do all your holiday shopping? Because at the moment they're sending people to the shopping malls, which are just nice, but actually much nicer to go to a heritage village, get that experience of what the golf would have been like, and bags of shopping at the same time. So
who doesn't love a museum gift shop at the end?
Exactly. And we don't really have that here at the moment from an Azure perspective. So on my plan for this year is to put in, we've got an info booth, as it's called at the moment. It's not it's not the best customer service friendly it's like a caravan but with some windows and it's probably better than that. It's got air conditioning, yes, but it doesn't work very well for customers. You're trying to talk through little windows because you can only have small windows to keep the aircon working, not have too much open, so it's just passing out. So I'm looking at building this summer, hopefully, fingers crossed, touch wood, a visitor welcome centre, which is something we're really pushing along with, which will be lovely because that will be that proper visitor welcome with a shop within the introduction into the Azure story, and then let people go. And then when they get to the far end, there'll be the souk full of, he says, again, hopefully slowly filling them out, but full of traders and local craftspeople and people who are, even if they're not originally local, they're based in RAC, so they are considered local. It's the UAE is built up of a lot of expat population. When I say expat, I don't mean just English people from around the world. So
Absolutely.
it's a really, really accepting, welcoming community. Really, everyone says hello to you as you're walking into the supermarket shops. There's no, whoever they are, where you're from, everyone's talking to each other, because the local population know they've had to bring people in, because there's thousands more jobs than there are Emirati population in Ras Al Khaimah. So, it's always been, and when you look at the foundation of the UAE, it was about, we will need to bring people in to build this nation with us. So, it's been always a sort of welcome and melting pot of different people.
Yeah, amazing. Look, you mentioned we had our initial chat. You've been there now 3 months. You've been doing lots of visiting of other attractions, because I think you said to me, which I thought was quite interesting, that there's lots that you bring with you from the UK in your experience, but there's lots of best practice and good practice happening within the Emirates already. So you've been kind of going out and visiting a lot of cultural venues and attractions in the Emirates. Tell me a little bit about those.
Yeah, so it's been a minute of a manic last month in February, because we've had the art festival. I know we're going to keep hinting at it. We'll get to it at some point. But when I've had some time away, what's been fabulous is just sort of, and I think as well, because the family aren't here and I'm on my own at the moment, it's like, all right, I've got some time off, let's go and explore. So I've sort of driven across to Jazeera, spent time in Sharjah, and took myself up for a weekend in Dubai, which was fab. So just booked a very reasonably priced hotel and just spent a weekend flowing around everywhere and just really immersing so I only scratched the surface. There's so much more to see. So I've been going and looking at, I don't want to do something that'll be alien to, obviously, the culture here, and that's been really what's been great fun in the last 3 months. Is it's not just going into a new job, and learning that. It's actually been a terrifying at some points, fabulous experience. I was learning new cultures, new working lives. Things are working. It's done very differently here. There's a different hierarchical process than we have in the UK, and permissions are needed in different places. And I'm not saying any of this is a bad thing. It's just learning those different things. So I've been learning all these different cultures. We're just coming into Ramadan, which I've had no real experience with before, and that is a massive, massive thing we're about to go into here. It is the biggest. It's the month. Every billboard you go past is someone trying to sell something for Ramadan, whether it be a new chest of drawers. Your family needs this new dining table for Ramadan. It's a bit like you will see at Christmas at home. Everyone catching on. IKEA will be saying new table and chairs for Christmas. It's not. It's a sort of different, repeating itself. Those sort of signs you have around the supermarket at Christmas back home, they're all up now in the supermarkets here for Ramadan.
Right.
Encouraging what people are going to buy when they break the fast at sunset, at iftar. So, so it's all sort of promoting, you need this. So it's we're going to a massive thing, and that's been a real sort of learning cultural thing for me, which has been great, because actually I've always enjoyed, when I'm travelling, learning about other cultures. It's always been, for me, I'll always try and visit museums, galleries, learn about the place I'm at. And so actually living somewhere and learn about someone who's been, I think it's added to the fun of the experience. But back to your question, yes, I've been travelling wherever the possibility to start to look at other historic venues, looking at where they've, restored historic markets and souk areas, and what sort of things are going in there, what are people doing there. Up in Dubai, there is a place called Al Shindagar Museum, which is where some of the historic buildings that have been saved by the Creek of Dubai have been turned into the most amazing series of museums, as anyone can describe it.
Right.
Because each house is a different gallery or different theme. So you'll have the story of the creek being built up, the story of Dubai's seafarers. Was a faith and religion room, talking about Islam and different cultures, how that's worked around Dubai. Dubai being built up as a city. Lots about the rulers and families. But every house you went to was a different place. What was so impressive there from a visitor experience perspective was the training that staff had was sensational. Really? When you're going to someone, you think they're obviously being managed really well, because obviously you don't just train. So obviously someone oversees this really well. But clearly the training, everywhere you went, the customer service was exceptional. People coming out from behind counters, giving you introductions, making sure you had everything you needed. As you were leaving, have you got any questions since coming? All those things we all have tried to teach over the years, and in many ways we've all been different levels of success of that. But what was amazing was they'd also got the security guards in on the act as well, because there's a real culture here that there's security. They're very different. We've got them here. They're in very much brown security, clearly marked. protecting places. But what they've done there is they had clearly trained those security guards as well, because every security guard you came across was getting in the act of chatting to visitors. Even if their English wasn't brilliant, they were really keen to direct you to the next, come this way to the next place. Oh, you finished that room, you must go upstairs. And, that sort of, and whether they, really just said, look, you can have a much more interesting day than just staring at people walking around. You can actually chat to visitors from around the world and get talking to them. And I just had the most amazing. I ended up in this museum for over 5.5 hours or something silly like that. And I thought I was going to be there an hour because it was priced very reasonably. When you judge a museum on, well, actually, I paid this, I'm probably going to be here for that amount of time. And actually, it was just, I found myself stopping for a coffee, stopping for lunch, and just still, I did get a bit of museum fatigue towards the end. But I was so impressed by the way the staff interacted. They also had a number of cultural local guides as well, who really were, in the full sort of Emirati national dress, but wanted to press on you. This is what I'm doing. So I travelled across to Jazeera the other week and was in an old what was the ruler's summer house. And the guy who ran it just took me on a tour. I didn't ask for a tour. He just said, he said, "Shall I take you around?" Yes, please. And we had this great hour's experience as he was just chatting about the rooms. And I think people here are very keen to share their culture and their heritage and very, very welcoming. So I've done quite a bit of travelling around the other parts of the UAE. I can't go out of the UAE because I've only got a hire car at the moment, so I can't go out to Oman. That's on my list. If you get yourself a car, I can travel north of the border into Oman and explore there. But for now, it's 7 Emirates too, so no shortage of places. And I've not been up to Abu Dhabi yet, so still got that on my list. So yeah.
Wowzers. Okay, so I guess, and this is completely what would I feel like if I was in your position of going to this new country, immersing myself in this relatively new place that you're leading. You. How do I say this without flattering you? You were a well-connected guy. If I went to events, everybody knew you. You had this wide network of people having worked in the UK in the attractions sector for a long time, and you've now jumped over to the UAE. What's happened to the network? How does that feel? I mean, it must feel slightly kind of worrying or nerve-wracking, but what have you done to build the network in this new place?
There's a number of points to that, right? So let's answer in a few minutes. So the world's a smaller place. So I'm still occasionally having Teams calls, Zoom calls with really close ex-colleagues, friends. LinkedIn, I'm sharing. I mean, I always know about I'm sharing, but everyone keeps saying, "Oh, I'm really loving the journey, so please keep posting." So I am going to keep posting, and probably going to start to annoy people after a while. But the feedback so far is everyone saying, "We're loving the journey and following you with it. We're on the journey." So I will carry on. So I'm sort of keeping writing stuff up and sharing it. And also, I don't know how long I'll be here for. Probation is massive over here. I have to keep my fingers crossed. I pass probation, which is a 6-month period, because it's a real the UAE, or not just off, and across the UAE, it's a real big, much more than at home, much more structured. I on day one was given a series, and this isn't a bad thing at all. A series of probation tasks, around reports that we did, around other historic parts, because the job that I've come over for will eventually evolve into a wider heritage role. But at the real focus is on Al Jazeera Hamrah, which is great. Get one site, get it going, then see where we go next. So I think I'm still connected to lots of people back home. I'm still seeing everyone's posts and enjoy. I mean, my usual jealousy of not being part of the Alva network anymore, as they're all having that great time in Belfast in the last couple of years. And seeing everyone's posts, not just one or two, but everyone Bernard downwards, everyone's posts. Like, I wish I was there with them.
The FOMO was real. So I had Andy Povey in the office with me yesterday, and we were both saying the FOMO about that Alva event was very real for both of us.
Having spent, I was in the Mary Rose a few years ago, we joined Alva, and to go experiencing those council meetings and knowing just how much they are great for networking. You get very spoiled because every host wants to really show off what they can do, and I think the Titanic always do that because we go there before for a council meeting. But it's So you still see this stuff. So still sit at home, and there's still people I can reach out to if we need to, and I'm still calling on people for things, different projects we're doing here. But then again, it's about slowly building up that network here. And I think there's a slightly, within Ras Al Khaimah, I've started making connections with lots of other people in the heritage world, and outside that, so we're already connecting up with different people from different parts of Ras Al Khaimah for the work we're going to do moving forward. And for me, I think it's been just I'm sort of still pinching myself that I'm here, and that sort of so many things keep happening, and the weather's been gorgeous because I've come out of a grim English weather to this quite nice winter here where it's mostly been mid 20s. You're in t-shirt and shorts when you're off duty.
Yeah.
The only thing the thing that really surprised me is how smart actually the dress code is for business over here.
Okay.
So I had to sort of all the usual brands that from home, Marks is Next, everything's here. So you could order online and get it delivered quite quickly. So I sort of came out of one wardrobe thinking I was going to be far more in polo shirt and linen trousers, a sort of very sort of summer at Painshill look, outdoor. But actually, my colleagues are still, because of the aircon atmosphere, lots of colleagues, particularly in the head office, are in suits, a bit like what I would have been when back in my London days, with the H, when we were in the office, you were in a shirt and tie. So I had to sort of buy a back home wardrobe almost once I got what I was expecting to do, because I travelled out with very lightweight clothing. So it's a bit different in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about life as an expat. How have you found the transition?
Fine so far. I'd say there's lots of bits around work and practices, and no amount of inductions will be able to help you on some little faux pas you can make about not realising what not chain of command as much, but where you need approvals for staff, and obviously coming from the last 6 years of being director of Painshill and feeding into a board of trustees who we'd see quarterly, and I chat to the chairman every week. There was a lot of me sort of making those sort of decisions instantly. Was here, particularly as we were part of the foundation and we are representing Sheikh Saud, as his name's in the title of the organisation, making sure we're going through those tick sheets. If I want to do anything that needs to spend more money that's out budget, that is going to His Highness to be signed off. So any projects we're doing, we're needing to make cases to the highest man in the country to actually get those, sign-offs and things. And that's not a bad thing, but it's just that from an expat, I guess, is getting used to. Everything's available here. The big supermarket up the road sells Waitrose and Marx's products, and has a room at the back for non-Muslims where you push the button, door opens. It's like a little bit of a naughty boys room. You push the button, door opens, slides. You walk in, and there's the pork heaven. There's bacon, there's pork scratching, essays. All because it's a real. It's not just. There's so many expats here, particularly from the Philippines and stuff, who obviously pork is a big part of their diet. So that's available. I said earlier on, there's cellars where you can pick up a great beer or a couple of glasses of bottle of wine or whatever you want. So actually, it's not that I felt myself flying into this really different world, and I'm not.
It's a melting pot, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm not someone who's ever been, not since very young, going off to nightclubs or anything like that. But if you wanted that, there is that at the hotels. So actually, if you were a younger person coming out and you wanted that nightlife, the hotels, particularly on Marden Island and Min Al Arab, the two big hotels have really nice restaurants, fully licensed clubs and stuff. But actually, I found sort of the work is busy. Everyone's lots going on. Actually, just going back to I was in a hotel for the first 2 months, which wasn't a dreadful thing because it was an apartment hotel. So I had enough, and now I've moved into a villa ready for the family to come out hopefully in about a month's time. So
really, that'd be exciting.
Yeah, so that's nice. So we've got back onto the golf course. It's quite it's a nice place to be. It's going to be nice, and
Amazing.
So I've not struggled adapting because it's not that I'm I've got a wonderful team here at Azure, so with one Emirati and some Filipinos and other people from around the world. So that's been nice, and this melting pot of learning their cultures as well as the local culture, and and then they eat rice with everything. So it's every lunchtime there's a bowl of rice, big bowl of salad, and the main course, and there's me pouring. I'm the one on the salad, everyone else on the rice. But it's been great, Paul. I mean, I can't. It's been one of those. Every moment you think this is just a great place to be.
Good. Let's go back to Azure and talk a little bit about some of the events that have been going on. So I know you're coming to the end of the Ras Al Khaimah Art Festival. Tell me a little bit about that and how well that's gone.
It's been brilliant. I know I had no idea what to expect. First time for this. So this is the 13th International Art Fair. It started off back in the small museum back in the city of the centre of town. Moved to here, I think 5 years ago is what I'm saying, and slowly grown every year since then. So this is the biggest one we've done. Really, lots of massive sponsors on board from across the Emirates. Actually, fully supported by His Highness, who's been here at least 4 times, if not 5, since we've had the festival. He was here at the opening ceremony for the big launch. It was, and it was like a proper opening ceremony. Everyone sat round with a band and speakers, and not quite an Olympics, but it was a proper. This is the opening of it, and it felt like a big event. all my female members of my team were given time off in the day to do hair and makeup. It was proper. Everyone looked the business. It was lovely. Everyone was scrubbed up, from the maintenance team to our executive director looking fabulous in a brand new dress. It really was. I've had a new suit. I even got a new suit for the occasion. So it was a lovely evening, and then it's rolled ever since. And for me, it's been wonderful because I've seen people in this village, which has been quite quiet since I'd arrived. And it's sort of been, okay, how are we going to get this? But actually, clearly, putting something on has attracted a complete cross-spectrum audience. So, we've had people coming in absolutely fascinating, obsessed with the art, beautiful. And it's artists, I should say, from around the world. It's all exhibited outside or inside the little houses. So, lots of the pieces have been blown up quite big and quite impressive. I mean, do look at it on the website. People, in RAK. If you go to azure.ae, you can then click on from there. But
we'll put the links and everything in the show notes, so people will be able to find that.
It's been for me. It's been fabulous because we've seen so many people in. We've got pop-up restaurants. So this won't mean anything to people back home, but the restaurant called Puro, Puro, has a restaurant at the top of the mountain at Jebel Jais. Really, almost impossible to get a booking. You have to book months in advance for lunch or dinner. Yep. It's the place that everyone, both locals and internationals and tourists, want to see, and often frequented by His Highness. They've got a pop-up restaurant here, which just is fabulous. Wow. We've had a lovely couple, Kelly and Paolo, running a restaurant called Antica, which is a sort of the chef's Italian, Paolo, but he's lived in Australia, so it's a fusion of Australian, Middle Italy, sort of historic villagey type cuisine with an Emirates twist, but you're just served 4 or 5 courses without. There's not a menu. It's not a restaurant as such, so it's sort of a sharing experience. But the food is amazing. So I was fortunate to have dinner. Well, I've actually been fortunate enough to have dinner in Antica twice and lunch there as well. But one of the dinners, I was then wandering around the village about 10 o'clock at night. It was full of people. Families. Just there is a different culture over here that people do more stuff in the evenings because of the temperature, and a different way of life because the local people aren't, obviously for obvious reasons, down the pub on a Friday night. They're doing stuff with the family, and you go past cafes and even outside of the village, 9, 10 o'clock on a Friday night, they're full of people sitting very beautifully dressed in their finest, drinking coffee and eating desserts. That's a big thing people seem to love, coffee and desserts.
Okay.
But then, of course, it's because they then because of the heat most of the year, we'll spend more time indoors resting in the day and then ready to go out at night and do some more stuff. So we've had that sort of here in the evenings. It's really fun. What was interesting is our hours for the festival were meant to be midweek. So Monday we're always closed. Tuesday to Thursday we're meant to be open until 6 o'clock, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday open till 11. Often struggling to get people out there. The first night, so the Tuesday night was the first night, we due to close at 6. 5:45, I had a queue of at least 40 people trying to get in. So we just had to make an on-the-hoof decision. We're going to stay open later. And then we just opened until 8 in the midweek. We didn't want to push it too much because of, obviously, from the staff welfare perspective, an hour's work.
Of course.
But actually, that first night, we was just myself and Sakrat, who's the director of the festival, Emirati, wonderful Emirati. He's been my cultural bodyguard in many ways because he's been my go-to person for, what should I do here? What about this person? How should I do this? So me and Sakrat just stood there looking at this crowd, and we both just said, well, we can't turf them away. This would be daft. So we've had about 40,000 visitors will have come through the door by the end of the festival in 28 days. The artwork's then going to stay up in place for Ramadan, which, as we mentioned earlier, is a big thing here. So we'll be working different hours again during Ramadan. And this is the first time Azure has ever done anything special because before now it's just been to come and visit, walk in, do what you like, leave.
Yes.
Now we're trying to structure that visitor experience. So we're going to be for Thursdays, Fridays and Saturdays, because Thursdays the sort of Friday night in many ways, because a lot of people have Fridays off here because of the day of prayers. And so a lot of people in Ras Al Khaimah go to Dubai and Abu Dhabi for work. So Thursday nights they'll travel back. So actually we're going to be open until midnight on Thursday, Friday, Saturday for Ramadan. So people will break the fast with their families, and then they want to do the sort of head up of activity. They've now got food back in them and an energy source, and out they come. So again, first time we've done it. Hopefully you see numbers, but the artwork will still be in place. We're then working on some different options around cuisine, food, coffee, and hopefully get some musicians in as well, just to give a bit of an atmosphere. But it's a holy month, so it's not parties, but it's enjoying for the family.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what does the future look like for the Heritage Village and for tourism and attractions more generally in RAK?
I think for RAK itself, we're trying to bring more tourists in. then trying to get them out of the hotels. Interestingly, as I had a lunch with 5 of our local big hotels at the weekend, using our Antica restaurant as an excuse to have another lunch there and invite some people in and just take on their views, which is great. So just chatting and getting their thoughts on it. They were saying what happens in Iraq a lot at the moment is people are finding the hotels through travel agents, through searches. I know when we were looking before I came out here, I know Ras Al Khaimah came up on a Thomas Cook, similar to what am I thinking of? Probably TUI, I guess, or something like someone like that. I was doing a search for when we went to Canary Islands, but up came Ras Al Khaimah as a hotel. And what they were saying is a lot of people will book that and have no idea really what Ras Al Khaimah is, other than it's part of the UAE. Some people think it's part of Dubai, actually, they don't realise it's 7 Emirates, etc. So a lot of people are booking their sort of tours at their hotels. Our job is to try and then get them out and attract them to do other stuff. So there's lots of adventure tourism going on at the moment. We talked about the zip wire and lots of hiking, walking, camel riding, trips to the desert where you can zoom around in 4x4s and go-karts and stuff. So from my perspective of the Heritage Village, is about bringing it more alive, bringing more people in, promoting it more, linking up with these sorts of hoteliers, concierges. And this is really early days for us because this has always been sort of slightly done but not really pushed yet, and sort of listening to what their advice is and seeing how we can act upon it, and what sort of stuff we can take forward, because there's a lot to be done. There's lots of other heritage sites across Ras Al Khaimah. There's about 90 on the list of actual heritage sites, and some of those are real ruins that you're never going to be able to do anything with. Those sort of English heritage free sites, the ones you stumble across with a little brown sign and you pull up with a lay-by, have a potter around, and off you go without seeing anyone. There's a bit like that. But then there's a number of sites that will work well with some activation. We've got the Dire Fort, which is on the World Heritage Site tentative list, and we're working on projects to slowly take that forward to World Heritage status, touch wood, because it's a really important fort, and it's perfect for that visit. You climb up to the top, you get the most gorgeous views, really is a gorgeous little site. So more interpretation, more things there is what's needed. But, again, this is all early days. So it's all about sort of, each day's an excitement. What can we do? What can we push forward? Yeah. Who can we talk to? And what's been great is as the festival's gone on, more people have been coming and chatting to me. Mine have become more well known. That sounds wrong. It goes back to your sort of earlier question about, people are sort of learning about, this person's here now, Paul's here. Although people could call me Sir or Mr. Paul, which is fine. I can deal with that. People keep saying, please don't call me Sir. You really don't need to, but it's so culturally ingrained. But Mr. Paul. But everyone externally seems to call me Mr. Paul, so I can put up with that. But I was there, although when we hosted His Highness hosted a dinner that I was invited to, I then got even pushed up to His Excellency, which was the title I want to go for.
That's quite nice.
Yeah, I love that. Apparently, I'd always thought that someone else I knew his title was His Excellency, was part of the family, but actually it's once you get to a CEO director level in royal that circle, you immediately become His Excellency. So. Yeah.
Well, there we go.
People for now.
I will correct myself in future communications with you.
Please do, yeah. But I thought it was wonderful. That's why it's just been lovely. The funny comments coming from people back home saying, "Oh well, I've amended my entry in my phone to now state your HE status." But yeah, so it's there. But no, there's a sort of cultural things. It's just okay, right, lovely. That's fun. But yeah,
it's been a whirlwind for you. It's been really interesting actually talking about it and understanding more about what's happening there, about how exciting it is, this huge opportunity that you've got to make something out of this beautiful historic village, and then the remit will grow from there. So I think this has been lovely. We always wrap up our interviews with a book recommendation, and you've had this privilege once before. So, have you run out of recommendations, or do you have something ready for me?
I was going to recommend The Red Island, an Emirati story, because it's based on Al Jazeera, Hamrah, but I thought that might be a little bit too niche. This guy, so again, little things are coming across. This guy's written a book, Adil, and he's going to be coming to Asia to do a book reading, book signing. So these little opportunities. I have read the book, I promise. It was actually fascinating because it was all about local culture. It went off in a number of tangents, but actually from a point of view of how the Emirati local culture works and families, it was actually quite a really good induction. But no, I've decided to go with a more book for management or book for running. And I don't think anyone's given this before, but if they have, I'm nervous. But this book, Fish, which is one of my favourite books, I've actually launched this as the Azure Book Club for the spring. So all the team have a copy. Book clubs are massive over here for work. So every department has one here in the Qasimi Foundation. So this book, Fish, is based around the Seattle fish market.
Right.
My colleagues who've worked with me in the past both I can hear them groaning now because I've forced everyone to read this. But it's basically around having fun when you're at work. And it talks about the story of the Seattle fish market, how they were just flogging fish, but actually one day decided, we need to liven this up. We need to want to be here. So they introduced sort of involving the crowd, fish flying through the air. Anyway, but it's a more of a story about a woman moves up in a company into a department that no one's been able to manage. She gets to the bottom of using the fish market. And it's just a really fun, easy reading book. And so I recommend it to listeners and viewers.
That's brilliant. So listeners, if you would like a copy of Fish, then
well, Paul, so please you have to give one away. So it's not costing too much money. It's just $9.99 in the non-fiction section. So yeah, cheap
bargain. That's the trouble with it. So I've been doing a few live events where we have panels. 4 people with book recommendations. That's going to bankrupt me. No, not today. We got a bargain this time, so I like this. Yeah, if you'd like a copy of Fish, if you'd like a copy of Paul's book, head on over to Blue Sky, and when Gwendolyn posts the show notes, go over there and repost it and say, I want Paul's book. And the first person to do that will get a copy of the book. Paul, delightful as always, 3 times on the podcast, at least, I think.
This will be number 4.
Is it 4?
Yeah. Well, because we had the original episode where Kelly grilled me about life at Painshill. Then we did the Turn the Tables episode when I grilled Kelly on setting up a podcast. And then we did the Goodbye to Kelly or whatever it was, 100th episode, and then this. So
yeah.
4 Skip the Cues, which is always a pleasure, and I'm so delighted. As you're my favourite podcast, obviously.
You say the nicest things. That must be a record. I need to go back and check that. I think 4 times on the podcast is pretty impressive.
So I think I should get to add all mine up into one as a total, so I can beat Dominic Jones, who's always had the biggest number, isn't he? So yeah,
he does, and he still does. So yeah, I think aggregating the number of listens for across all of your episodes, I think that might be within the rules. Let me see what I can do, and I'll add everything up, and we'll see if you can take Dom's crown.
Sorry, Dom.
He's not competitive at all, is he?
No, he's not. He's a great guy, though. So yeah, it's a friendly
exactly. Thank you very much, Paul. I would love to keep in touch. Let's keep talking. I want to hear what happens, not just after the first 90 days, but I want to hear what happens in a year's time and 2 years' time. So thank you so much for coming on and telling us about Ras Al Khaimah and the Heritage Village. It's been lovely.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great. Been a real pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Skip the Queue. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. It really helps others to find us. Skip the Queue is brought to you by Rubber Cheese, a digital agency that builds remarkable systems and websites for attractions that helps them to increase their visitor numbers. You can find show notes and transcripts from this episode and more over on our website, skipthequeue.fm.